You want some breakfast?
I want some cornflakes.
Can I have some of your cornflakes? Oh, I don't want none. I won't take none. I won't take none. I won't eat none if you don't want to. Oh, look at that pretty horse there. Is that a white horse? See? Oh, now stand up. Look over there. Stand up. You got to stand up over that building. See the big one? There he is.
My earliest memories that I can think of as a child with my father are walking through airports and being in crowds and feeling in the vibrations of people's clapping and shouts in my chest. And just looking at my dad, you know, like, who is this person? And it was all the time, anywhere we went. You're the greatest, we love you, and the clapping, and Muhammad. I loved feeling all the energy and the love that he felt.
We now think of Muhammad Ali as this vulnerable guy lighting the torch in Atlanta, and everybody on the globe loves him. Black people like him, white people. He's a universal hero, like, but almost in a religious way, like the Buddha. But when he was in the midst of his career, and not just in the early bit, he was incredibly divisive.
Boo, yell, scream, throw peanuts, but whatever you do, pay to get in.
People hated him, whether it was along racial lines, class lines, Vietnam lines, political lines, religious lines, where they just couldn't stand him. And people, of course, had the opposite, and this was, I loved him, loved him. But you had an opinion about him.
I ain't scared of nobody. It's gonna take a good man to whoop me. You can look at me, I'm loaded with confidence. I can't beat me. I had 180 amateur fights, 22 professional fights, and I'm good as a girl.
Look how pretty I am.
My long trimmed legs and my beautiful arms and my pretty nose and mouth. I know I'm a pretty man. I know I'm pretty. You don't have to tell me I'm pretty.
I'm cocky, I'm proud.
You never talk about who's gonna stop me. Well, ain't nobody gonna stop me.
I say what I want to say. Ain't no more big talking like this.
He was a pioneer. He was a revolutionary. He was a groundbreaker. A guy known simply as the greatest.
I am the greatest.
I've wrestled with alligators. I've tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning and put thunder in jail. You know I'm bad. I can drown a drink of water and kill a dead tree.
This will be no contest.
Wait till you see Muhammad Ali.
To have that chutzpah and to be a black man in America it was outlandish.
Muhammad means worthy of all praises, and Ali means most high.
And I just don't think I should go 10,000 miles in here and shoot some black people that never caught me. I just can't shoot it.
I always wonder why Miss America was always white. Santa Claus was white. White Swan soap, King White soap, White Cloud tissue paper, and everything bad was black. Black cat was the bad luck, and if I threaten you, I'm gonna blackmail you. So Mama wanted to call it white male. They lied too. I love being around him. I love being around Muhammad Ali.
You gonna float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Ah, rumble, young man, rumble. Ah.
The price of freedom comes high. I have paid, but I am free.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose.
The winner and still heavyweight champion of the world. And the greatest fight of all time. Of all time.
Hey, I'ma keep on running cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name's Kylie Ambu, and I'm the inclusion reporter at WGVU Public Media. I'm so excited to be a part of this special event surrounding Muhammad Ali, one of the best known and most memorable figures of the 20th century. a 3-time heavyweight boxing champion who captivated millions of fans with his mesmerizing combination of speed, grace, and power in the ring, coupled with charm and playful boasting outside of it. Ali insisted on being himself unconditionally and became a global icon and inspiration to people everywhere. That's why it's an honor to have with us tonight Jamila Ali Joyce, one of Muhammad Ali's daughters, as well as Dr. Lewis Moore, professor of history at Grand Valley State University. Jamila and Lewis, I'm giving a very warm welcome to you both, and we will get to hear from them in just a moment, but with such talents, we need a proper introduction. Let's start with Jamila. Jamila Ali lives in Chicago with her husband and 3 children. She has a Bachelor of Science degree from the College of Communications at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and currently has 20 years of service employed as a job counselor for the Illinois Secretary of State Department of Personnel. She was requested to accept the Boxing Excellence Award on behalf of her father for the 2008 Amateur Charity Boxing Gala, hosted by children's charity Mercy Home for Boys and Girls. She was also invited to speak at the Daughters of Greatness Breakfast Series at the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville, Kentucky. Jamila and her children are active members of Chicago charities that provide food and toiletries to the homeless community. She also helps to raise funds for the ALS Foundation, St. Baldrick's Childhood Cancer Research Foundation, and Leo Boxing Program for Childhood Youth. Now on to Dr. Lewis Moore. He is a professor of history at Grand Valley State University. He is also the author of 2 books, I Fight for a Living, Boxing and the Battle for Black Manhood, and We Will Win the Day, The Civil Rights Movement, the Black Athlete, and the Quest for Equality. He has an Audible lecture for The Great Courses, African American Athletes Who Made History on Amazon. And along with currently working on a book about the Black quarterback, he's also the co-host of the Black Athlete podcast. You can contact him at proflumore.com. Alrighty, I will get out of your way now, Jamila and Lewis. Again, thank you so much for lending us your expertise tonight, and I hope that you all enjoy this very important conversation. Take it away.
All right, thank you for that. Jamila, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Lewis?
I am surviving. I am surviving. I've been waiting for this moment since they brought this to us, about 4 or 5 months ago. I'm so hyped, right? Just watching those intro clips of your dad, just seeing him and everything that he stood for, the opening clip with his family, but then also the politics of just being cool, right? And I often tell my students, like, even if it wasn't for the activism, he would have already made his mark on society for being who he was as this very proud Black man, you know, saying that he's publicly saying that he's pretty, right? Nobody had said that stuff before, and just giving people the courage and confidence to live their life as Black people in America during the Civil Rights era. And then on top of that, you add the human rights element, right? The activist element, which he paid for, right? For his bravery. And as many people know, and we'll get into this clip in a second, that part of that is his refusing to be inducted into the military for Vietnam War, right? And one of the things that stands out to me is in 66, you know, those famous quotes, right? I ain't got no quarrel with the Viet Cong. And as you saw in the video, the Viet Cong never called me the N-word, but also he was one of the first Americans, well-known Americans out front of this, right? He's before MLK, before Martin Luther King Jr., it was Ali, and it was Ali's courage, I believe, that gave MLK that same courage to take that brave step. Now for Ali, that meant possible jail time. Right. That meant that the U.S. government came after him in 1967 when he refused induction. But then in 1971, they realized, like, yeah, we made a mistake, right? You were right after all. And luckily, you know, he got that, right? He got that victory. But up until that moment, he suffered dearly. He lost his career momentarily. The media treated him awful, right? But in the end, he believed in himself. And I think that's why he's such a beautiful human being. And so what we're going to do right now, we're going to roll into a brief clip of him getting the news of the Supreme Court overturning the ruling against him.
The court unanimously threw out the conviction of boxer Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay.
On June 28,
1971, as Ali was leaving a corner store on the south side of Chicago, the shopkeeper heard the news and ran after him to let him know.
Well, I was on 78th Street on the south side and just bought me orange in a grocery store, and the grocery owner came out and grabbed me and hugged me with tears in his eyes, a little black fella, and told me that you've just been vindicated and you're free. 8 judges all voted in your favor. And he just hugged me and squeezed me. And
how do you feel about our system now?
Well, I don't know who will be assassinated tonight. I don't know who will be enslaved or mistreated. I don't know who will be deprived of some other justice or equality. So I can't say nothing. All I can talk about is my case. And I'm thankful that the courts recognized my sincerity and my beliefs in this case.
Oh, it was so beautiful. Oh, it was beautiful. I cried because I was so happy. My brother was facing a prison sentence. He was found guilty. He wasn't found guilty. They let him go. He was right. The Supreme Court said he's right. It's just so beautiful. It shows there's a God. It was easy for him. It was easy. You know why? What he doing in his mind was doing the right thing. Do the right thing in life, you're happy. Don't worry about what people say. Do what you think is right.
Somebody asked me once in high school, what do you think about the war in Vietnam and maybe going over there and fighting? And I said, listen, I can't see any reason I'd be shooting these Vietnamese men and women. Why would I be doing that? Why would I go there? Why would I support that? I thought it was my own thought. That shows how powerful Muhammad Ali is. It was a thought that I had gotten from him, but I didn't even know I got it from him. When he says, no Viet Cong ever called me, I mean, somehow that got into my head, but not on purpose, not consciously. And that's a real leader. He influences you, and you don't know what's happening.
That's so powerful. Can I ask you, what are your thoughts when you see that?
I am smiling from ear to ear right now because he was born to have that impact on people. I mean, and us, I'm very grateful to share his DNA. I mean, just to have that type of belief and not have any fear, to set it out in the open and to let people know and not care about the consequences, and just doing the right thing. I mean, it's so rare for even today's time, but even back then it was even worse to be able to be an African-American man at that time speaking out for what's right. It was terrifying. And for him to do that without question, I really, really respect that as my father and as a man.
Right. And when you see your uncle almost tearing up, like I want to tear up too. Like I'm like you understand the magnitude of what he went through. He literally, I tell people all the time, he risked it all, right, for what he believes in, and I think that's so powerful.
It's very powerful, and especially at that time, he did have everything to lose. Different from today's time, but back then he did risk everything, and I don't believe at that time he cared, because he cared more about doing the right thing.
Did he understand the impact that he had on others of his generation?
I do believe he did, for sure, and at an early age. And that's only because at that time, the whole world was against him, especially when he took that large stance of not wanting to fight the Vietnam War. And when he took that stance, he created quite a few enemies, and that's with everyone, the world. And at that time, the Cleveland Summit in 1967 was introduced. Jim Brown, he actually organized it, and he included some of the greatest Black athletes, in the country at that time, including Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They all came together to lend their support, because my dad was basically saying, at that particular time, he had just came out. He changed his name to Muhammad Ali. He says, I'm a Muslim. My religion is Islam. And my religion teaches me that we are not supposed to be a participant in a war where people's lives are being taken. And so for the Cleveland Summit, for that organization or that meeting to take place, they all kind of stood behind him, and they basically said, we want to lend our support to Muhammad Ali because basically he's sticking behind his conviction, and they understood that conviction. They understood how he felt. And not only that, even members of the military supported his reason for not going due to the conscientious objective law at that time. They all kind of understood why he didn't want to do it. Martin Luther King, for example, he admired my dad's courage and actually vouched for his sincerity in the cause. My dad, like you said before, he was stripped of his title. He faced extreme penalties for his refusal to serve in the Vietnam War, and yet he did not let go of his need to do the right thing. So that impact definitely made a big difference with a lot of the African-American athletes at that time who rallied for him. And I think he also made a difference in young, the young adults, because after he was stripped of his title, he couldn't make a living in boxing. So what he had to do is he had to go and speak at college campuses. He was getting paid about $1,500 a speech. And the colleges, black and white, had huge crowds of people gathered there. And I believe that they wanted to just hear him out, and they're talking about, we're talking about educated, college kids who just wanted to hear what he had to say, to hear what this stand was all about.
Right. And even when you see those speaking engagements at college campuses, it always grabs you, right? Like I think one of my favorite things is his shortest poem ever, right? I believe, what is it, Me, We, right? When he's telling these college kids, right? And here's a guy who was ridiculed, right? So in '64, when he took a test for the military aptitude test, he failed and everybody mocked him, right? And everybody was having a good time. And all of a sudden, 3-4 years later, he's giving college speaking tours and everybody's realizing, you know what? This brother's smart and we should listen to him because he's going to guide this country in a right way. And when you bring up MLK, I just like, whoa, because I said this earlier, he had his courage, right, was what I think got MLK to have the courage to publicly denounce Vietnam. But just 3 years earlier, and you said people, hated your father, even someone like Martin Luther King publicly came out against him and essentially in today's terms told him to shut up and dribble. Like obviously he boxed, right? You don't play box, but he boxed, right? But King, when he changed his name from Clay to Ali and aligned himself with the Nation of Islam, even Martin Luther King wanted nothing to do with him. But just 3 years later, he believed in him so much, he was willing to support him. Jim Brown, as you said, Bill Russell, a young Lou Alcindor who becomes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Carl Stokes, who goes on to be the first Black mayor in a major city. All these people got behind your father because of who he was, right? He was a person who was unafraid to challenge the system because he knew the system was wrong. On that note, one of the things that comes up, your dad always comes up, right? Because he's the greatest, right? He's a human rights legend. He's an activist, but he comes up in today's terminology when we talk about the activist athlete. So I use the term like shut up and dribble, but he's come up with the last 5 years in the context of like Colin Kaepernick kneeling. What do you think your dad would say about those comparisons to today's athletes? And also another part of this question is, what advice do you think he would give, someone like a Colin Kaepernick, who essentially lost his NFL career over protests?
Well, my dad would be very happy to know that he inspired, others athletes, just as himself, to stand up for what they believe in. However, I believe he was in a class all by himself because he was risking everything because it was a different time period. It was just the timing. He was in the middle of the civil rights movement. On top of that, he was facing extreme penalties, a 5-year imprisonment sentence, $10,000 fine, being stripped of his title, being stripped of his career. His passport was taken away from him. He could not make money within the United States and outside, at least not with boxing. And that's all he knew. He wasn't a college educated man, so he could not just go and get a job that someone else could give with a degree. So he was very limited. And, as you know, athletes have a very short time span. So that was what he knew how to do, and all that was taken away from him, plus, getting all these other things taken away. So he actually risked everything, but I believe the advice he would give to other athletes and other people would be to stand up for what you believe in. You have to stand for something.
Yeah. I agree with you too. Like I've read everything about there, seen everything. I'm like, yeah, he would certainly say that, right? Like don't give in and believe in yourself. And I think he'd be certainly proud of someone like Colin Kaepernick. But you're right, he is in his own category. Did he ever talk to you about, when we talk about risking it all, did he ever talk to you about those days of the U.S. government coming after him?
No, not really. We were so young at that time when he was facing all this turmoil. This was I want to say the mid to late 60s, so we weren't around yet. But years down the road, we learned what he had to face, and that made us admire him that much more. When we start learning what he sacrificed, what was important to him, that helped us grow. And that also helped us view him as a person that could definitely be someone to look up to. And that's how we learned how to give to others and to sacrifice and for the greater good. And every single time his intent was always to do the right thing. So even though he didn't really directly tell us about all these things, we learned it. And it's once we found out everything that he sacrificed, that made him to us legendary. Right.
And this is perfect because I was going to segue into talking about family. And one of the clips we see, I believe your sister just talking about how it was and everybody's yelling his name. At what sense did you ever get, on the one hand, do you ever get used to that? And when did you understand that your dad's like truly the greatest, like not just in the ring, as you'd always say, but, one of the greatest human beings that we've, seen in our time?
I believe it was early on. We actually, in kindergarten, even, my twin sister and I, he visited us and the whole school shut down. We didn't know why. And once we start learning, people used to say, we watched him box, we watched him on TV, we watched him doing all these great things. He was a hero to all these other people. We tried to discover what was he doing to become a hero. Well, he was helping people. He was doing the right thing, and he was boxing and winning. But even after his boxing career, that was just the beginning of so many more things that opened up the door for his life. His life did not end after boxing. It just started. And he used boxing as a platform to get his other messages across.
Yeah, and he certainly did, right? What was it? Now I'm just dreaming. Like, what was it like having him as your dad? We never get to hear this. What is Ali at home, like Friday night, you know, or maybe you're going out a date. I don't want to get you in trouble, but what's he like? The dates come to the door. What is this Muhammad Ali like?
Well, we didn't have the luxury when we were teenagers of him living with us. Unfortunately, he'd come and visit us a lot because at that time, you know, he was with another, you know, he wasn't married to my mom, but he did come and visit us quite often. And when he did, a typical situation with us would be he would love to tote us around, go to restaurants, go to nice places. He loves to get dressed up with us right by his side. I have a lot of siblings, so he would try to get all of us siblings together. And he wanted, the important thing is for us to get to know each other and to love each other, even though we were not living all in the same state. He knew that, but so he put forth great effort to make sure we all, you know, got to know each other. And to this day, we are close to one another because of him. He is the actual glue that kind of started that whole process. Family was really important to him. Togetherness, his faith, of course. We would go and pray together. He built a mosque here in Chicago, and we would go there and say prayer with him. He spoke about his faith a lot. We went out with him. He would sign autographs. He'd go to the worst of neighborhoods and got right there in the middle and start signing autographs for anyone who would ask for it. And again, he had a great sense of humor. I mean, he would always kind of pick on us about boyfriends and things like that. But he was always positive. He was always, you know, very faithful in whatever he did. And he used that faith to combat situations in his life that became challenging, like when he acquired Parkinson's, for example. We saw how his faith helped him through the tough times. And that's what we saw firsthand.
And let's talk more about that if we can. One
Sure.
of the things that when we talk about his faith, and I think people truly forget this, right? When we talk about the Vietnam War, everybody goes to, and we saw with the clip with Walter Mosley, the idea of race. But his challenge was that idea. It was based on his faith. He was, as you said, a conscious objector based on religion. And I think we tend to forget that. And this is a perfect segue that we have now. We have a very small clip on him and his faith and his devotion to Islam.
His devotion to Islam increasingly shaped his daily routine. He prayed 5 times each day, facing Mecca, called friends to discuss the differences between religions, and distributed autographed pamphlets that he hoped would help correct common misperceptions about his faith. When he traveled in the Muslim world, massive crowds greeted him as Muhammad Ali Clay to distinguish their hero from thousands of faithful Muslims also named Muhammad Ali. During a goodwill visit to Pakistan in 1987, Muhammad and Lonnie visited schools, hospitals, and mosques. They delivered canned milk to an Afghan refugee camp along the border and encouraged guerrilla fighters there in their long struggle to evict the occupying Soviet army from Afghanistan.
He needed love like he needed air to breathe. So the people did probably more for him than he did for them, if not at least equal. You know, so he was so grateful for the love they gave. He was so grateful for that.
In 1989, he was on the road more than at home, visiting England, Senegal, Switzerland, and Saudi Arabia. In April, he and Lonnie made a pilgrimage to Mecca during the holy month of Ramadan. Ali had visited Mecca before, in 1972, but now admitted that he hadn't fully appreciated its significance and acknowledged that his commitment to his religion had long been imperfect. I fit my religion to do whatever I wanted. I did things that were wrong and chased women all the time. Everything I do now, I do to please Allah.
One of my father's favorite sayings was, rivers, lakes, and streams all have different names, but they all contain water. So do religions have different names, but they all contain truth? He always taught me that there's only one true religion, and that's the religion of the heart, he would say. And as long as you do right and you treat people right, you know, I believe you'll go to heaven no matter what you call your religion.
Wow, that's so powerful. And I'm stealing those words from now on and telling people they're mine. One of the things I love about that brief clip, when we talk Ali and religion, so often we just stop at the Nation of Islam, right? And nobody really explains anything else afterwards. It's him, it's Malcolm, then it's the Nation of Islam, and then there's nothing. Can you describe your father's journey of his devotion to Islam from Louisville Baptist, being those Baptist roots, then Nation of Islam, and then now his conversion to Sunni Islam?
Absolutely. So, as you know, he did grow up as a Baptist in Louisville. But the moment he became a Muslim was when he came back from the Rome Olympics in 1960, and he won the gold medal in the heavy lightweight division. And he wanted to go to a restaurant with a friend of his in Louisville, Kentucky. And they did not serve him because, of course, he was Black. And it was segregation at that time. And at that time, he thought that because he won this medal, represented the United States of America, that it would be different. Things would be different. He was wrong. He threw the gold medal in the Ohio River and says, this medal means nothing to me because I can't even eat at a restaurant in my home state, in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. So the principles of Islam at that time was basically calling him. It's what he needed, is what he wanted at that time, because the principles of Islam is basically restoring dignity to your family and to who you are, and being proud of who you are. And the self-determination was very empowering for him. So for that particular time, it was a big drive for him to basically say, hey, I'm going to embrace, it's not just a quote unquote religion to me, it's a way of life. And I want to embrace that. It's speaking to me. This is something that I need to hear. This is something that I want. And especially at that time frame, if everything's timing, at that particular time in his life where civil rights was everything was heightened, the brutality, the way they were treating African Americans at that time, it was awful, it was terrible. He wanted to see justice served. And I think also Daddy attributed Islam to his success. He actually quoted in an interview in the early 60s, he said, I pray every day for every fight, because when I hear 10 to 15,000 people booing against you, you're just in there on pure faith alone. And he attributed Islam to a lot of his success because Islam helped him get through the very difficult times that he was facing at that particular time. Now, that was basically Nation of Islam. As you know, in 1975, when the leader of the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad, passed away, his son, Wallace Dean Muhammad, took over. And basically what he did was the Islamic religion, it's always been Islam, but he went back to true Islam. He went back to what the true teaching is. I guess they call it Sunni Muslim or Orthodox or traditional Islam. But basically when Wallace Dean Muhammad took over, he basically went over to the traditional Islam with him. And the teachings that Wallace Dean Muhammad had at that time, it was not black and white. It was human excellence. It wasn't about Black power at that time. But I can understand why my dad was kind of going in that direction, because at that time there was a lot of brutality. And he was seeing his people get mistreated. It was just awful. It was just awful. But he didn't come to his beliefs right away. He kind of hid it in the beginning when he was fighting in Miami with Sonny Liston, though, because he didn't want people to say, okay, but this person is in this Islamic Muslim religion. We don't know anything about it. He didn't want them to not have him qualify for the title because of that. So after he won the Sonny Liston fight, he decided to come out and say, my name is no longer Cassius Clay. My name is Muhammad Ali. And that's when he basically told the world, this is my new name. This is my new faith. And a lot of people didn't know anything about Islam. They thought that it was a cult of some sort, you know, but as he started learning more and more about it, he started coming out in public and in kind of preaching about what his beliefs are and how Islam was pivotal to his beliefs and how he made his decisions. Basically, he came out and a lot of people were kind of giving him a hard time about his name change. And a lot of people was wondering why the name change. He was taught by in his religion, he was taught that all races are given a dignified name, you know, except African Americans. And Black people at that time were given the names of their slave owners. So Islam, he's telling everyone, is a religion where they give you a dignified name with a meaning. And he told people that Muhammad means worthy of all praise, and Ali means most high. And he was really proud to say that when he was a Baptist, his Christianity teachings and upbringing did not teach him that. Islam did. So he embraced Islam in every way because of that. That's one of the reasons that kind of drew him to Islam. And then again, as I indicated before, despite, you know, the Nation of Islam and at that time, the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, he actually branched over to the new leader, I would probably say after 1975. And my dad transitioned with the new leader, Warthin Muhammad, and he clarified that, again, human excellence, not necessarily Black. You could be a Muslim and be of any race and any color. My dad once said, God doesn't look at color. Minds and hearts don't have color. He looks at our actions and our deeds. And he started focusing on that. And even though at that time with the Nation of Islam, despite the color and everything, my dad got along with all races. He had all races of people in his camp at all times. He always treated people with kindness, and he also treated every race with respect and dignity.
Right. And I think that's one of the most amazing things, that even when you watch those videos, even when he's a member of the Nation of Islam, as you said, his camps are integrated. His relationship with someone like a Howard Cosell or his training. And so you always get like, okay, like what's going on here? But as you said, he truly believed, whether it's Nation of Islam or afterwards, in the humanity of folks, right? And I think that's shown. One of the things from that clip that stands out to me is him being celebrated as Muhammad Ali Clay to distinguish him from the other Muhammad Alis. Whereas in America, I don't know if you or listeners know, is most folks wouldn't call him Muhammad Ali, right? And so there's been studies done. The majority of white daily newspapers in America didn't call him his real name until March 1971. And that's after he lost to Joe Frazier, right? And he had already gone through his court case, right? So even when he had lost it all, you could still read newspapers calling him Cassius Clay. Whereas the Black press did the same thing up until 1967. So you'll read Black newspapers in 1966 calling him Cassius Clay. But other places respected that name, right? And I think that's what stands out there. But once they saw he was right, he's Muhammad Ali and he's Muhammad Ali forever. And what happens here is that he becomes that transition. I think this is why this is so powerful. people always forget how much the American media, the people in power didn't like him because he challenged them, because we remember the loving Ali, or the Ali that everybody else loved, right? The human rights Ali, the guy who could go to the middle of war. And you actually believe when you see that clip, he has the power to stop war, right? Like that's how we remember him. And part of what people argue is part of it is he's, as I like to put it, he's defamed, right? And part of that is, you know, he's in the ring for a long time. And if you follow boxing, it's hard to stay on top of the game, especially as we saw at the beginning. Young lions like Larry Holmes are out there, right? Always to prove a point, or just guys like Ken Norton. But the other part of people suggest it is Parkinson's, right? And once they don't see him as the Ali who's speaking all the time and maybe speaking truth to power, they start to transition on how they see him, right? So I want to transition into his battle and his life with Parkinson's, because you brought it up earlier. It was his faith that carried him through. We're going to segue into, I would think, one of the greatest, most iconic moments in sports history. I mean, that's obviously debatable, but for this show, we'll just call it the greatest moment in sports history, when he lights the torch in Atlanta in 1996.
In 1996, the Olympic Committee, planning the Summer Games in Atlanta, asked Muhammad Ali to light the torch at the opening ceremonies. At first, Ali declined. He didn't want to be seen shaking and stumbling on that stage. But his friend Howard Bingham convinced him, "This is the thing where the world is saying, thank you for all that you've done over your life," Bingham told him. "There will be 3 billion people watching." The plans were kept secret.
Do you recognize her? Janet Evans.
Considered the greatest female distance swimmer of all time.
And it was planned very brilliantly. I mean, people really thought the swimmer, Janet Evans, was going to be the person who was going to light that torch. But instead, out of nowhere comes Muhammad Ali.
I'll take the long road.
You hadn't really seen him in a while. You knew he was sick, and when you would see him, he was clearly showing the effects of the illness, but he hadn't been seen that much, and then here he is in this big prominent moment, and he's holding that torch and he's shaking. And man, I'm about to cry now. It was hard to watch, because you don't want to see your guy like that. You don't want to see that. But you saw it.
He was defenseless now. He can't hurt us anymore. You know, he can't make us mad anymore. Because now the game that we ask him to play to entertain us has left him looking like this. Now we feel some sympathy, if not guilt. We see him shaking, trembling up there. The most beautiful moving, most beautiful athlete in motion you've ever seen. And now he can't hold the torch. You know, so we feel guilt and we feel sympathy. We want to hug him, we want to embrace him, we want to ask his forgiveness. You know, everything, for every reason that we disliked him, now we love him. You know, because he was right.
It was striking to see this evolution, not in Ali, but in us. It just struck me so amazingly to watch Ali riding this torch, people weeping. It's amazing. And you cast back not so many years before, and some huge amount of the country thought this guy was the Antichrist, where they chose to hate him, where they made him a foil to the other guy that they liked better. And it's entirely possible that human beings are capable of learning something.
I'll take the long road. Yeah, yeah.
The outpouring of love caught Ali by surprise. Parkinson's robs you of confidence, Lonnie told a reporter. Now he knows the public will love him and accept him, no matter what he has.
What a powerful scene. What a powerful quote to end it with. What are your initial thoughts whenever you see that? I'm sure you've seen it a million times, but I'm watching you. I don't know if the viewers can see you just lighting up, just smiling. What are your initial thoughts?
I remember that place and time. And it was, my dad kind of did remove himself from the cameras and the lights. And when he did find out that he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he was showing visible signs of the tremors and things like that, he did kind of back away from the cameras. And as the individual indicated in the video, they haven't seen him in a long time. And then now they see him with visible signs of Parkinson's. So, you want to be kind of sad, but my dad does not live life with regrets. Everything that happens in life is for a reason. And again, faith will, basically pull him through any situation. And this is no different. When he acquired Parkinson's, we tried to learn as much as we could about it. At that time, when he acquired it in the mid-'80s, they didn't know what it was. They would think that it was boxing. Later, I guess with all of the research, they found out that it's not boxing, because other individuals have Parkinson's and they've never boxed a day in their lives. But they didn't know it wasn't from boxing at that time. So, at that time, they were still learning and growing and trying to learn what this disease is all about. But nonetheless, it's progressive, and there's no cure for it even today. So yes, my dad was devastated. And but for him to be selected, it was a big secret for him to light that torch in 1996. Family didn't even know about it because they didn't want it coming out. So all we were told to watch the Olympics and turn on the TV, and we were like, okay. So we turned on, we were like, oh my gosh. And it was such an honor. Yes, we saw him shaking, but with or without Parkinson's, my daddy, I call him Daddy, that's who he is. He is a fighter through and through. And whatever the situation is, yes, again, like I said before, when he first found out about Parkinson's, it did, the tremors, and it did cause some of the effects, like the slurred speech, and his speech got quieter. We've noticed over the years. However, he did kind of view that as an opportunity to help people. He said, well, it is what it is. I have it now. I'm going to have to kind of take this and figure out how I'm going to handle this. So he, took it, and he says, I'm going to use my faith to be stronger in this situation and help other individuals with Parkinson's and other, diseases, debilitating diseases such as this, neurocognitive diseases, I would say. I'm going to help them with this particular situation. And he did. He actually opened a Muhammad Ali Parkinson's Center in Phoenix, Arizona. And I do believe they still have Ali Care. And these are for people who don't have a lot of money, who have Parkinson's, and it gives them access to medications that you need to kind of manage the disease. But again, with Parkinson's, he fought it just like he would anywhere else. I mean, he did not, at that point, wasn't afraid to hide. He went out and we took him to the movies, and he went to baseball games and things like that. And again, he did see that people still loved him. They still respected him. And so that having Parkinson's did not stop the love from coming, because he actually, like my sister said in the Ken Burns video, he did need people's love like he needed air to breathe.
Right.
But again,
Yeah. And the one thing people should know, his mind stayed sharp, right? He was just brilliant throughout. And this last, well, we're wrapping it up here, but a two-parter here. On the one hand, how did your father's Parkinson's impact you? And also, how are you mentioned him and his work in the Ali Center. How are you continuing that legacy, educating folks about Parkinson's?
So definitely, I have a twin sister who came out with a book, I'll Hold Your Hand So You Won't Fall, who she actually learned a lot about Parkinson's. She wrote a book about it to help individuals who are living with someone with Parkinson's, what to expect, and basically how to view, everything that they're going through emotionally and everything else and physically. Like you said before, it's important to know that his mind did stay sharp, although he couldn't express, what he wanted to say when he wanted to say it, but his mind was still sharp. He still, had that sense of humor that we always loved and adored him for. But it did change me also, because it does make you more empathetic to people with neurocognitive diseases. Whenever I'm walking, I was the other day I was at a store and I saw a man right in front of me, and he was, reaching for something in the store and his hands were shaking. And I immediately stopped and I said, I remember, first thing I said was, it may not be Parkinson's, but that's the first sign that I saw my dad having with Parkinson's, the shake, the hand tremors, and then the slurred speech. You empathize with everyone more so when you're dealing with it at home. And people who live with someone with Parkinson's and other neurocognitive diseases, you have to have patience. You have to, love them all the time. And also you have to understand their new life all the time. You have to know what they're going through. And I think the important thing is that you have to listen to them and basically not let, no one wants to feel like they are less than nothing. So, and with my dad, with this big loud mouth and with Parkinson's, it made him, silent almost. He would, on the good days, he would speak very well. But for the most part, it did affect his speech, but it did not stop him. It did not stop him, but it did make him, and that's why I believe him, he was a great father. It did make us, care more, give more, empathize more with everyone else in the world.
Right. That's powerful stuff. And as we conclude, my simple concluding remarks that he's the greatest. Do you have any last remarks that you want people to remember your father before we get into some question and answers?
Well, I'm just going to say that my dad had a dream. This was probably in my sister's book, but my father had a dream 20 years ago about him floating in the air in his hometown, Louisville, Kentucky, and the crowds were cheering for him, and he just felt the love, and he was in a happy place. And we believe that was him at the time that he passed away and the time that his funeral took place in Louisville, Kentucky. Everything that he envisioned in his dream came true. He lived with dignity. He died with dignity. And every walk of life, and all of my family members also, we all appreciate every walk of life. We went there to pay homage for my dad, to show respect and to pray for him. And we appreciate all the love that he has given this society, and whatever he has, if even he uplifted one person, we love and we appreciate all the love and support that everyone has shown him and us.
Right. That's perfect. Thank you again. Thank you so much. We are going to take some questions now.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Thank you both so much for just such an insightful dialogue and really emotional storytelling. It's been wonderful to hear both of your insights and the conversations that go along with just the incredible legacy, Jamila, that your father's left. We did ask for some viewer submission questions ahead of the event and had just an overwhelming response. So we're going to get to some of those now. Jamila, I'm going to start with you. This viewer is asking, can you tell us about the first time that you realized your dad was a celebrity? And also the first time that you realized his impact as a champion for both civil rights and social justice.
I would say the first time I viewed that he basically was a celebrity is when we were little at the time. We were kids. We were basically at a restaurant and crowds of people came. We could not eat our food. That's when I knew, okay, who is this person? He's just daddy to us. Why can we not eat our food? And they were asking for his autograph. And again, my dad, he never could say no to anybody. So he just kept signing away. But I think as we got older, I would probably say in 1996, when we saw the impact of the Olympics in Atlanta, that's when I said, wow. He is not just a great boxer, he's a great person, a humanitarian, and everyone, they love him, you know, and not just for being a boxer, just being for who he is.
Absolutely. And this next question kind of goes in part with that. You're talking about your experience, and this viewer wants to know, did your father's activism help really form who you are today?
Absolutely, it has. And I learned a little bit later on in life the impact through documentaries and things like that. My dad came out with a autobiography, but I actually learned when he grew up in the 60s, it was a completely different world than what we were used to, because even though racism, you know, we're going to always experience some form of racism no matter what decade you live in. But at that particular time, it was the civil rights movement at that time. And a lot of individuals at that time did not want to speak out. And he was the first one to say, and as an African American at that time, it was very rare for someone to speak out because they were afraid of losing so much. In a situation where he had so much to lose, he did speak out because he wanted to do what was right. And he actually encouraged me and my siblings to do the same. Sometimes we are kind of battling what to do, and, you know, even though the decision can be very clear to us, sometimes we are battling, how should we make this decision? How would my dad decide in this particular situation? We'd have conversations with him, and we would kind of migrate towards doing the right thing, because that's what my dad would do. And again, and we would make the decision without the obstacles that my dad was going through when he made the decision to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. So it did really, really form and encourage all of us to do the right thing. And we have big shoes to fill. But again, he was a great person. His faith led the way for so many, for people, and for him to make the right decision. And he encouraged other people and inspired people to do the same.
Certainly, certainly. And I know when you're talking, we've kind of discussed, you know, the time period that this is all taking place in, and certainly a difficult time period. Louis, this question goes out to you, and they want to know, were conditions just right for someone like Muhammad Ali to speak out about racism and injustices?
The framing is, you know, just right. You know, we'll say this. In terms of athletes speaking out, I think people were waiting for it, right? And you know, certainly he's amongst, you know, a few who are willing, as we said, to risk it all. You know, there's someone like a Jackie Robinson, and then there's, you know, people like Ali and later Jim Brown, and the conditions that people are talking about are not only Jim Crow, but what's going on in the North too. And I think people forget that he when Ali speaks, even though he's from Louisville, right, the segregated South, and we talk about him not being able to go into a restaurant after Rome, but he also understands what's going on in other places. He understands police brutality. He understands poverty, and this is what he becomes, right? He becomes this voice for everybody, the little person. Yeah, and I know we celebrate all the rhyming and all the rapping and stuff like that. But when you really get down to it, he's the man of the people, right? He like I said, he talks about all these issues that everybody's dealing with. And he does it in a way, and one of my most favorite quotes from him, and he says, look, people look at Joe Louis, who's a heavyweight champion of the world. They look at Sugar Ray Robinson, who's one of the greatest fighters of the world. And he says, they tell me, why can't you be like them, right? Be quiet just like them. And he says, well, they're quiet and we're still in our positions now. So I'm gonna speak up, right? Because being quiet doesn't help us. So I'm gonna risk it all so that, everybody could have freedom.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Jamila, this question really kind of follows, all of these questions have really followed, one right after another, talking about the time period. This says, what is it like to grow up with a parent who had vocal proponents as well as critics? What did this teach you about interacting with society?
Well, I believe, first of all, we were a little bit fearful because, again, everyone is not going to like his stance. Everyone is not going to like, my dad's, his beliefs. Or even at that time when he decided to come out and say he was a Muslim, everyone's not going to like that. So, we're dealing with a hostile environment. People don't know what this religion is. They don't know what his stance are. They may or may not like him. Whether you like him or you don't, you have to at least respect his visions, or at least his ability to stand for what he believes in. Because that's the American way. Everybody wants to be treated equally and fairly. And again, my dad, like Louis had indicated, he's for the little person. So, whether you like my dad or whether you didn't like it, it was a little bit fearful for us because some people didn't like him. And they expressed that to us. And it was a little bit fearful because we didn't know about his safety. We didn't know about our safety, because some people get angry, but at the end of the day, most people loved my dad in the end. And most people did kind of appreciate that he did stand up for what he believed in. And again, whether they agreed with him or not, they could not separate themselves from having at least respect for him to stand out in the crowd and say something.
Absolutely. And standing up really for what he believed in solidified, his legacy. Louis, this next question, from your perspective as a scholar and an author, how do you see Ali's place in history, both as an athlete and as an activist?
Oh, I've said it right here. He's the greatest, right? He, and as Jamila said, he's in a class of his own. Just because he was willing to risk it all. And I'm not saying everyone should have to risk it all, right, to prove a point. But the idea that he gave up everything, he gave up his championships, he gave up his money, and the government came after him, and he didn't waver, right? And that puts him, as an activist, number one, and then as an athlete. If you ever watch those old films, right, he is the perfect athlete. He's super duper quick. He changed how heavyweights were supposed to fight. He looked a lot different. He wasn't going to go out there and slug it out. As he said, he was pretty, and that meant I'm not going to get my face busted up, right? And so that's why he's number one in my book, and I'm sure he's number one in a lot of people's books.
Absolutely. And you both had a great conversation earlier, kind of touched on athletes' roles as activists and how that has kind of changed over time. Jamila, this viewer wants to know, what are your thoughts on why Americans in power have historically made exceptions or granted status or opportunities to certain Black individuals, often celebrities or athletes, but not necessarily Black Americans, and how this continues to support racist structures in the U.S.?
Definitely. Well, I've seen it throughout my whole entire life. People the society, they do tend to treat celebrities different. So if you look at a group of individuals who may be racist, for example, but they'll treat an African-American celebrity with kindness. We have seen that, and that's something that we almost can't do anything about because it's just the way the society that we're living in, unfortunately. But I believe that the celebrity that's the minority group, they have an opportunity to come out and display to individuals, listen, I am African-American, and just because I'm a celebrity, you should treat everyone that looks like me the same. So my dad made it a very, very big effort to not hide himself from the people. Like Lewis said, he's the people's champ. People loved him. He would go out, he would come, hanging out with us kids. He would go to the gas station, pump his own gas. He didn't have people doing that for him. He got right there in the middle, in the bad neighborhoods. People didn't believe it was him because they would assume that, well, why is Muhammad Ali doing this? Wouldn't he have someone else? No, my dad got right there in the center, and he wasn't afraid. He did not want you to distinguish him from the African-American down the street. Now, he wanted to put forth great effort to treat the African-American that was down and out. He wanted to put forth an effort to make sure that person felt the same love and respect that he loved. In fact, my dad did say that if everyone loved me he said if everyone loved everyone else the way they loved me, the world would be a better place. And I completely agree with that. But then you would have to do away with treating other African Americans. If you don't like that race, you would have to do away with treating other African Americans that are not celebrities poorly. You have to treat everyone equally because, again, we're all humans at the end of the day. There is no, race, color, or whatever. It's who you are as a person. It's your deeds. It's going to speak louder than the color of your skin. Color of skin means nothing. In this society, it does, but it should not, because it should be, what are you bringing to the table? Are you good to people? Are you helping people? Are you kind to people? That's really what should be first and center.
Absolutely. And I can tell by the passion that you're bringing to that answer that certainly your father's legacy and principles. No, it's a wonderful thing, wonderful thing. And you can tell, just those teachings that he gave to you as his daughter are certainly carrying on to everyone that you touch. So thank you so much. It looks like we do have time for about one question left for each of you. Lewis, I'll go out to you. This person would like to know which lessons each of us could learn from the work and accomplishments of Muhammad Ali. Good luck, because that's a big question.
No, and I'll just piggyback off Jamila, this idea that the way he approached life, like this, the least of these, right? Like be the, it's this idea that I think he truly believed that he wasn't free in society unless everybody else was free, right? And that's how you should approach it. Just because maybe you're famous, maybe you have a little bit more money than everybody else, he understood that didn't matter unless everybody was free. And I think you get the sense of that right at the beginning, or when we showed the clip about the 1971, the Supreme Court ruling, right? And he said, look, this, there might be an assassination, there might be police brutality, there might be all this stuff, like I could deal with me. But I think that's what you take away from him, this idea that you need to fight for everybody, right? Not just yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Jamila, this question has, the ability to have just such a strong effect, and that is, what is one thing that people still don't know, out of all the documentaries, out of all of the conversations that have been had, that they still don't know about your father that you wish that they did?
Wow, that's a tough one. They probably know this already, but because he is such a large man, physically and in society, with us being just daddy to us, he was a teddy bear. I don't know if they knew that. He was the sweetest, the kindest, the most gentle, soul for us. And again, you can kind of see that in the clip, the first clip that I showed with him sitting with my sister May and stealing her cornflakes. I mean, he's just the sweetest, gentlest soul, and he was just a great dad. And I don't know if people knew that, but he was just this warm, beautiful person inside, and we were just truly blessed to have him in our lives. I want to be with him all the time, but because, of course, with who he is, we have to share him with the world. And again, I'm okay with that because he wanted, you know, he wanted the world to be a part of his life, and that's fine. He loved people, but again, he was just a beautiful teddy bear, basically, in a big person's body. I just want to thank Grand Valley State. I really do, for all of their hard work and dedication to this project. WGVU in Grand Rapids, Michigan is also Great American Bagel as well for making this possible.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for your honest and great responses and just the wonderful dialogue that you were able to provide tonight. I truly can't think of two better people that we could have had for this discussion. So thank you so much. And to those who are viewing right now, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible conversation. And be sure to stay up to date on more WGVU stories and programs. You can head to our webpage, WGVUnews.org. From our family to yours, we're wishing you a happy and safe night.